Welcome back to the channel. I'm Henry Higgins, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at some of the reveals and highlights from DC Fandome 2021. Now, last year's event was capped off with the first trailer for The Batman. Similarly, this year's event was also capped off with a trailer for The Batman, but more on that later. But before we get to that, thank you very much for watching and for choosing to spend your time here with me. Please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel as it really does help us out, and leave your thoughts below on what you thought of DC Fandome, which titles have you most excited, and what you hope to see in the future. Now, just to clarify, we're not going to be covering and looking at everything that was revealed at DC Fandome. Instead, we'll be sticking with the elements that piqued my interest, starting with... Now, the animators are hard at work on Season 3 of Harley Quinn, though the Queer Queen of Chaos and her good buddy King Shark were on hand at DC Fandome to give us a work-in-progress sneak peek of what we can expect when the most anarchic of toons returns in 2022. Now, it's not an understatement to say that the Harley Quinn series was a highlight of DC's output in the last 2 years. From the art style, the quality of the voice work, the evolution of Harley and Ivy's relationship, and Kite Man. I adore this show. As you know, I'm a huge fan of Harley Quinn. This show is excellent, and I look forward to its return with glee. Now, another animated show that caught my eye was the reveal of Batman Caped Crusader. It's another reworking of Batman in animated form, with the poster giving off a real 1940s pulp noir feel. Not much else is known about the project at the time of me filming this video, but it's definitely one to keep an ear to the ground for when it comes to new updates. Obviously, the holy grail when it comes to Batman in animation is Batman the Animated Series. The Batman Beyond TV series was great as well, but the animated series is so fondly remembered, and fairly or unfairly everything gets compared to it. The aesthetic of this makes it look like it will stand out, but only time will tell. It's not just TV that's getting the goods when it comes to animation, though, as 2 feature-length movies also caught my eye. The first up, Injustice, based on the video game and later comic book run of the same name, shows us a world where Superman, after being tricked into killing Lois Lane by the Joker, finally snaps, slaying the clown in cold blood and introducing a totalitarian regime where he essentially rules the world with an iron fist, or you may say a man of steel fist. Where the heroes and the villains across the DC landscape choose to either side with Superman or join Batman's resistance against the Kryptonian. Now, at Fandome, we were given a snippet of footage which has been playing while I've been talking here, showing this unfold as a line gets crossed even heinous villains knew better than to consider. All told, if they captured the tone and the grittiness of the comics and the cutscenes in the game, this is going to be epic. The other animated movie is one I hadn't heard of until now, is Catwoman Hunted. From the footage shown, it does seem to be a more light-hearted affair with jaunty 60s spy music and a general TV show man from Uncle vibe to the tone. With the plot that sees Catwoman wanted in multiple countries for acts of theft, but is given the chance to wipe her slate clean by teaming up with Batwoman to take out 10 notorious villains. Who those villains are isn't revealed in the footage, although the trailer itself does show pretty much everyone in Batman's rogues gallery, so it could be them, it could be new villains, who knows, but the quirky animation style and the fun take on the subject matter makes this one a standout and one to really look out for. Alongside them, we have the interactive side of the DC fandom with the video games. Now, both games featured here were first shown at last year's Fandome, so it was expected to get a run out here too, and neither disappointed. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League gave us a story trailer after the character introduction one from last year, but there's still no in-game footage. We do get to see why the foursome of Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, King Shark and Deadshot were chosen, plus a sneak peek at other members of Task Force X you maybe weren't expecting to see, which is a nice reminder that this movie does take place in Rocksteady's established Arkhamverse canon, with the time frame seemingly after the death of Bruce Wayne at the end of Arkham Knight, based on the appearance of one character, and that is the Penguin. The trailer ends on a nice little fun joke with the four main characters basically doing a rib in wrestling parlance on the Penguin, which again gives you an idea of the tone. The other title featured was Gotham Knights, which is not part of the Arkham continuity, but confusingly for some it does take place after the apparent demise of Batman. So when the trailer first came up, people thought it was a follow-on from Arkham Knight. It's not, but it does lead to an interesting parallel. Again, very little gameplay footage was shown, but it does confirm the heavy involvement of the Court of Owls, which everyone was expecting, as the basis for the overarching storyline. Both games, interestingly, do feature multiple playable protagonists, and I believe both will have co-op. Suicide Squad will definitely have co-op, but I do believe that the Gotham Knights will have co-op. Whether it will be split screen couch co-op, whether it will be online co-op, perhaps in the vein of the multiplayer in Assassin's Creed Unity, which is vastly underrated and underappreciated. Though it does seem that Gotham Knights does retain the more stealth-based approach of the Arkham games, along with the combo-heavy combat, while Suicide Squad, from all reports, appears to be more of a third-person shooter, something we're not used to from Rocksteady's Batman trilogy. Perhaps one, or hopefully both, of these will be the game that Marvel's Avengers should have been. Televised live action continues with the usual roundup of Arrowverse shenanigans, with The Flash itself revealing another new suit for Barry Allen as the Gold Boot finally making an appearance. After what has been, for me at least, a lackluster few seasons, don't know, odd good episode here and there, The Flash really needs to, pun fully intended, hit the ground running. Season 8, with the return of Wells Thawne back in the mix. It would be interesting for me. I think it'd be interesting to see a team up of Reverse Flash. Zoom returning. Zoom was an amazing. I still believe Zoom is the best villain the show's ever had, and even Savitar. Have them as a team up. Have the show go out on a high. Because during the first 3 seasons it was another speedster villain, but then when they tried non-speedster villains, it just, for whatever reason, it didn't work. So bring the 3 speedster villains back and just go for it. Now, sticking with the Arrowverse, Batwoman Has Returned. The first episode of season 3 has now aired, and while I do enjoy Batwoman, it is clear that this is the weakest of the CW superhero shows. The departure of the Kate Kane character does rob it of its central axis, especially when it comes to Alice. For me, the best character in Batwoman, and the main character's relationship to Bruce Wayne and the overall Bat family. The current Batwoman is fine, don't get me wrong. I just feel that they should have just recast Kate Kane. Since they recast her anyway in season 2, just so she could depart, they should have recast the character and just kept Kate Kane going. I believe the series has suffered quite greatly for that, but hopefully now that we've established who is who and what is what, season 3 can build on that and actually go somewhere. Only time will tell on that one as well. Going from the weakest of the CW shows to arguably the strongest of the CW shows with Legends of Tomorrow, which continues its current season with the 100th episode looming. It's going to be a big deal. Though, from tips and teasers and set photos, there's a lot of returning characters. Now, Legends was always a good show, but once it went on its own path of having little to no continuity with the mainline Arrowverse, and just started having fun with the concepts the show could explore, it became a great show. The premise makes it perfect for casting character rotations, though the loss of Constantine, even if Matt Ryan is sticking around to play a different character, the loss of Constantine is a hard one to take. The actual Constantine TV show was fantastic. I would have preferred if Constantine was leaving Legends of Tomorrow to get his own show again, continue where that left off, because that would have been amazing. But either way, Legends of Tomorrow is the most fun of all the shows. It has the most interesting premise because it can go in any time, any space. It can feature any character and make it plausible that that character is there. And it knows what it is. And I think with any show or any movie, if you know what you are and you commit to that 100%, even if that is silly, cheesy, just out off the wall stuff, if you commit to 100%, it will work. So for me, for episode 100 of Legends of Tomorrow, all I have to say is Viva la Wave Rider! Moving away from the Arrowverse, we have Titans, which has its season 3 finale this week and has been renewed for a season 4. Now, the show does have its detractors, but for me, it is one of the most consistently good comic book shows on TV. It has a great cast, a great roster of characters, a great premise. Relocating to Gotham for season 3 has made a hell of a difference, and all of that together makes it a fantastic show to watch. I mean, sure, there are plot holes a mile wide at times, but the action is brutal, the dialogue fizzes, the characters are well developed, and it'll be interesting to see who they bring in as the big bad for season 4. Season 1, Trigon just didn't work. Season 2 had a great Deathstroke, and this season is knocked out the park with Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane, and the introduction of Red Hood has been very well done also. It's an interesting one because it's one of the few shows, I believe, 'cause it's only a 13 episode season. A lot of the Arrowverse shows run for 22, 23 episodes a season, and it seems like they pad it out. And they could be done with being reduced to like 15, 16 episodes. But with the amount of story that Titans has tried to tell in season 3, it could have done with more episodes. There's the whole Raven, Donna Troy, Themyscira stuff was kind of glossed over. The Scarecrow Red Hood stuff. There's a lot going on. There's separate strands, and they're all fighting for attention in a shortened period of time. But we'll see what happens with the final episode, and obviously again a season 4 is absolutely brilliant. Moving away from the Arrowverse, a new show announced for the CW featuring a character I have no familiarity with is Naomi. It stars Casey Wolfall, and I apologise if I pronounced that name incorrectly, and it is confirmed to be in the Arrowverse continuity due to a split second cameo of Superman. The show is based on a character created by Brian Michael Bendis, David F. Walker, and Jamal Campbell in 2019. So she's a very new, very recent character. And when looking her up, it'll be interesting to see how much of her origin story is kept intact. From the trailer, it does seem that at least some of it is being retained. So it is going to be interesting to see what happens there. Moving from there to a show that I did know was coming and I've been hyped for a while. One of the bigger shows as well, announced last year, was Peacemaker, with John Cena reprising his role as the arsehole traitor from the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. He betrayed Task Force X from within, and this show picks up from where that movie's post-credit scene left off. We see Peacemaker is being recruited outside of Task Force X to take care of some Black Book operations in exchange for his sentence being reduced. So it's very similar to what he was doing within Task Force X, but it seems to be even more off the books because for all intents and purposes Peacemaker died and they can show the Peacemaker died. So it's definitely much more under the radar than Task Force X was, which is saying something. Vigilante makes his second live action appearance after being featured in Arrow quite heavily, and we also see Judo Master in action. At first, when I was watching the trailer, it took me a bit of time. I had to rewatch it. I thought it was TDK. The costume looks similar, but it's not. Obviously, TDK got killed in the Suicide Squad. So, Judo Master looks like being transferred really well. Judo Master is a constant thorn on the side of Peacemaker in the comics. And this promises to keep the humour and sensibilities we expect from a James Gunn project, while also allowing the character of Peacemaker to grow as a person across the season. It'll be interesting to see how that develops. Robert Patrick has been cast as Peacemaker's father also, which is going to be an interesting development. He's a fantastic actor. But it looks like that's a strange relationship. Special mention to Doom Patrol for getting renewed for another season, and the Sandman for looking like being the next television event series. Game of Thrones level, possibly. The first trailer, or the teaser, was released. A lot of direct page to screen. It looks fantastic. Only time will tell. It does have an excellent cast. With Gwendolyn Christie being cast as Lucifer as well, which is very interesting. And that wraps up the live action TV portion of this video. And lo, we reached the promised land that excites me the most, the movies destined for cinematic releases. Not all of the films featured here had trailers, but there was enough footage from those that didn't to at least get a feel for what we have in store. Announced, but with no footage, were both Batgirl, not to be confused with Batwoman, and Blue Beetle. Both of these have been desired by fans for the longest time, with Blue Beetle himself having been teased multiple times whenever Cord Industries was name-dropped in the Arrowverse. I don't think it was name-dropped in the DCEU as of yet, though I may be wrong there. But it was definitely name-dropped multiple times in the Arrowverse. Blue Beetle was actually meant to be in Arrow, but they brought in Ray Palmer as the Atom instead because the writers and showrunners for Arrow were told that they had plans for Blue Beetle. So that's why we got Ray Palmer. And Ray Palmer, Brandon Routh, excellent in that character role, so that's not something to be too upset about. The DCEU continues to expand, though the uncertainty of what is and isn't canon when it comes to the Snyderverse does muddy the waters just a little bit. Behind the scenes footage of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom showed us plenty of snippets for returning characters, mainly Arthur Curry himself, obviously, Mera, Orm, also known as Ocean Master, and Black Manta, with everyone, seemingly with the exception of Mera, in upgraded costumes. In the same vein, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, had mainly behind the scenes footage, with all of the main cast from the first film returning, though Grace Fulton will now play both the normal and superhero versions of Mary, whereas before it was Michelle Worth who had taken on the role of the superhero Mary for the end of the first Shazam movie. So she's the only one who will play both versions of her character, which is quite interesting. But for me, the most intriguing casting is Jimon Hounsou returning as Old Man Shazam, and very excitedly, the baddie's being played by Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, both of whom are badasses in their own right. Mirren, especially, following her turn in the Fast and Furious franchise, seems to be having a blast in the role of Hespera from the footage that was shown. Sticking with the Shazam side of the DCEU, we also had some footage of Black Adam, and holy shit, was it impressive. Initially, the character was going to feature in the first Shazam movie. He is referenced, Old Man Shazam does reference him at a brief point, but it was decided to give Black Adam his own standalone movie, Shazam, the sequel we've just mentioned, and then have them share the screen in the follow-up to those movies. And for me, that seems to have been the right decision. As for the title character, you couldn't have asked for a better casting than Dwayne Johnson. The Rock has long had this character as his passion project and has said repeatedly that once we see Black Adam in action, the power structure in the DCEU would be changed forever. And truth be told, one scene featuring Black Adam reducing a guy to dust and bone makes that very hard to disagree with. From there, we did have Ezra Miller introduce the Flash by saying that it's still filming and they don't have a trailer, but the footage presented showed enough to be considered at least a teaser trailer. Adapting the Flashpoint storyline, which was done well in the Flash TV show, Barry Allen uses his powers to travel back in time to stop his mother from being killed by Reverse Flash. Though he doesn't know it was Reverse Flash that killed his mother at this time, he still just thinks it's a random person. Causing the timeline to unfold in a different way, meaning he has to try and fix his mistakes. In the comics, the timeline was changed in multiple ways. The main difference, other than Nora Allen still being alive, was that in Crime Alley it was Bruce Wayne that was killed, not his parents, with Thomas Wayne becoming Batman and being quite a bloodthirsty Batman, and Martha Wayne actually becoming that timeline's version of the Joker. I do not believe they are going to do that here, and when we get further into this, obviously it'll be clear why. The footage does show there to be two versions of Ezra Miller's Flash, and a quick glimpse shows both of them standing beside Sasha Calle's Supergirl. Kiersey Clemons, though not shown, does return as Iris West, confirming at least some continuity from the Snyder Cut of Justice League remains. But the big selling point for this, other than the awesome Flash suits, is the return of both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton as their own respective Batmans. Now, the former would be expected as he has shared screen time with Ezra Miller's Flash already, but Keaton's Batman, teased excellently in the footage here, is what most people will be excited to see. That they also teased the 89 Batmobile. That was the perfect sign-off to the footage shown. I am also wondering if they will show the Crisis on Infinite Earths meeting between the DCEU Barry and the CW Arrowverse Barry, but this time from the movie character's perspective. That could be an interesting little nod and a tip of the cap as well, but again, we will have to wait and see. And, as referenced at the very beginning of this video, closing out both DC Fandome and this little recap we're doing here, we are sticking with the Caped Crusader as Matt Reeves' The Batman had a new trailer, and holy mother of all fuck, was this epic. More Bruce, more Selina, more Oswald, more Riddler, more GCPD, more Alfred, and a lot more rage. Seriously, this is a very angry Batman. Filled with desire to mete out as much pain as possible. Starting with Riddler being arrested, likely part of his overall plan, similar to Joker getting arrested. John Doe turning himself in on Seven, which Seven seems to be a very big influence on at least the aesthetic of this movie. We see Batman on a tear of vengeance, an extended look at the fight with the face painted guy, who appeared to be homaging existing DC villains. There was definitely a Joker and a Two-Face element to some of them. A brawl in a nightclub, a wingsuit escape, which looks fantastic. Batman walking through a hail of machine gun fire like it's nothing, and driving like a damn maniac. Catwoman also gets much more footage this time out, and shows her to be very capable of looking after herself in a fight. Oswald also appears in the footage a little more, so he may play a bigger role in the movie than people were expecting. The highlights for me were a moment where it definitely looks like Batman has removed part of his chest symbol and is pointing at Oswald. When first watching the trailer, I thought he had disarmed the goon and was pointing a gun. But having looked at it again, it definitely looks like his hand has pulled something out of the chest plate, the bat symbol. I'm hopefully highlighting it here on the screen, but I don't know how well it will be resolution wise to make out. So go and check out a more high def trailer for yourself if you want to have a look. But yeah, so that was a highlight for me, where it definitely looks like he's removing something from his chest plate, his chest symbol. And then the closing shot of an upside down Batman walking towards a crashed penguin, cape billowing and fire blazing in the background. This is Batman. and it was a tremendous way to bring the entire fandom to a close. It's a very exciting time to be a comic book fan, with both Marvel and DC killing it in so many different mediums. And that's before we even consider the more independent comic book labels putting out their own comics and getting their characters translated to the screen, big or small, animated or live action. So all that's left for me to do is thank you very much for watching. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend it with me. Please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, as we said, it really does help us out. Leave your thoughts below on what you thought of the DC fandom, what you thought of my thoughts on the DC fandom. What titles have you most excited? Was there anything I didn't cover that you wished I did? And what you hope to see in the future, both with DC, Marvel, comic books in general, and on the channel. What do you hope to see from us? But please stay safe, wear a mask, look after yourselves, look after each other, and I will see you on the flip side, friends. Goodbye.